This video was brought to you by Raycon. Yay, it's Christmas time! That means I can use Silent Night, Deadly Night footage again. Punish! And Santa has a similar fate for you if you don't consider getting Raycon's everyday earbuds for the holidays. Hey, I don't make the rules, Santa does. The everyday earbuds come in a variety of colors to choose from and come packed with sound comparable to the biggest names in premium audio, while also starting at half the price. It makes the perfect gift that's also much easier on your wallet. Shop smarter, not harder. On top of that, they pack 32 hours of total battery life thanks to the rechargeable carrying case, and you can even outfit that with this cool protective covering. This marble finish really is just lovely on my eyes, and check this. The everyday earbuds support wireless charging even with the covering on. Get your 90 minutes of battery life in just 10 minutes of charging while keeping your earbuds snazzy looking. And as someone who's been using Raycons for several years at this point, I not only find them very comfortable on my ears, but I also genuinely enjoy using them for everyday activities. But given that it's cold as balls outside, I'm going to stick to doing household chores for now, and that's good enough for me. So don't wait up on this holiday deal. Go to buyraycon.com/somecallmejohnny today to get up to 25% off site-wide. Yeah, that's right. You'll get up to 25% off everything on Raycon's website when you go to buyraycon.com/somecallmejohnny. And as I've said time and time again, thank you all so much for supporting my channel throughout this year, and I truly wish you all the most joyous holiday. Now let's spit in Dracula's eggnog. He's a jerk. Well, this video was supposed to go up late October, but I got sick, and then Sonic X Shadow Generations came out. And even though I like to think I've been running this channel long enough to be known for a variety of things outside of Sonic, let's face it, Sonic's my bread and butter conversation that's always easy to talk about. And it's a substantially better paycheck during holidays too. Still, this wasn't something I was going to leave in the back burner any longer because it's Castlevania. I'm back in Castlevania country for this video. You can consider this a nice little prelude to what I have in store for my next Castlevania marathon. I wanted to tackle the handheld 2D entries next. All the titles I'm sure fans are familiar with, like the Game Boy Advance games, what was it, Circle of the Moon, there was one before Aria of Sorrow, and it was Aria of Sorrow. And you got the DS stuff, like Dawn of Sorrow, Portrait of Ruin, Order of Ecclesia, which gratefully received new life with that new Dominus collection. Thank you for that, Konami. There's a lot to go in with those. And I know some of you are excited at the notion that I'm finally heading into those handheld games, but our adventure doesn't begin on the Game Boy Advance or the Nintendo DS. It goes all the way back to the original Game Boy. Yeah, it should come as no surprise that Castlevania saw life on the OG Game Boy. Every major company got their filthy hands on this thing back in the day. But Castlevania goes as far back as 1989, the launch year of this gray, near indestructible brick. Looks like Konami wanted to establish Castlevania's new handheld life as soon as possible, and first up was Castlevania The Adventure, released for holiday 1989. I don't really have much trivia to share with this from the get-go, other than I found out one of the programmers for this was Masato Megawa, who later found Treasure, developers of some of my favorite games like Gunstar Heroes and Radiant Silvergun. Actually, would you guys be interested in me talking about some of my favorite shoot-em-ups of all time? Like Gradius, Darius, Fi Momarius. I'm not talking bullet hells, I'm talking about actually fun games. We're also close to the 35th anniversary of this game. This game is only 2 years younger than I am. How's that crippling depression treating you? Anywho, this is my first time really getting to play Castlevania The Adventure, and for transparency, I'm emulating my first time with this, despite having a physical cart and the anniversary collection on Steam. This was something I've only heard things about throughout the years, and those things weren't always... Well, actually, no, it was always bad. But I couldn't immediately recall what those things were heading into this, so I'm just going to jump in and oh my god, this is my default strutting speed. Huh. Oh my lord, this guy is on molasses, and there ain't no run button either. This is the Game Boy. You just gotta whip, and you gotta jump. I mean, whipping feels the same. You can even upgrade it every time you collect one of those orbs from candles. When it's maxed out, it can even shoot a fireball for some long-range vampire killing. But you lose upgrades here just by taking damage. And I'm not talking about like in Bloodlines where you only lose your super whip power if you manage to grab it. No, your standard whip can go all the way back down to level 1 if you keep getting hit. Good God. And the whip's all you got for this game too. There's not a single sub-weapon here, only the occasional cross that makes you invincible for a short time. But there's no dagger, no axe, no holy water, no bibbles, not a damn thing. It's so strange to me that the hearts you can still get from candles are just health refills now. This is Castlevania. Hearts shouldn't be health. They should be ammo. Most candles just offer these crystal thingies. They're points for a high score. You can get an extra life when you collect enough of them, so that gives them some worth. But considering we live in a day and age where save states can cut on a bunch of time anyway, these are nothing too special today. Holy shit, I'm still processing just how slow Christopher is in this game. I don't think my footage speaks loudly enough. This is almost unbearable, and it's even worse whenever I have to do platforming, because I swear most of the level design doesn't properly accommodate a Belmont with cement in his fucking shoes. Platforms can be placed just far enough to feel uncomfortable while jumping on them. That's something you start feeling as soon as stage 1. I shouldn't have to worry about being damn near pixel perfect on the first stage. Shit, some platforms immediately fall the moment you land on them, and thankfully the game doesn't spam these, but whenever they do show up, I know I'm gonna eat shit. Apparently the castle this go around also doesn't believe in stairs. Dracula saw what other Belmonts can do and said, well fuck them, get rid of the stairs and put down a whole bunch of ropes. And that is the main means of screen transitioning in this, climbing ropes. And I don't know about you, but climbing a rope is much fucking harder than climbing stairs. Christopher's gotta climb a whole bunch of them. His upper body strength must be insane. For all the words I've been dealing with so far though, the game doesn't leave the worst first impression. The rolling eyeballs are a little weird, they even explode when you whip them. But everything else is standard Castlevania fare. You got bats, you got Fleeman, music pretty good. Gotta whip the shit out of this hulking knight dude here and we're golden. Starting with the second stage and beyond, however, the whole thing just shits itself. This game only has 4 stages, but fuck me, 3 of them feel like marathons. They just never seem to end, always making you repeat similar obstacles and dodging the same hazards. To be fair, this is kind of the gimmick with the second stage because it has multiple pathways, and I think it requires going down the right rope to progress or some shit like that. I don't know exactly how it works, because check this. I go up the rope here, I enter the next screen, but then I immediately go back down that same rope, and now I'm in a completely different screen. The boss room at that. What? What the hell are these things supposed to be anyway? Big Fleeman? They look more like frogs, or uncooked chicken wings. Oh come on, that didn't fucking touch me, go to hell. Glad to see that even in 1989, Castlevania has what I can only describe as the Slogra hitbox bullshit. Now stage 3 I found the most interesting, despite it suffering the same problem of God just fucking end already. You're being chased by spiked walls throughout the whole thing. Horizontally and vertically, it doesn't matter, this spiked wall is out for blood. Mega Man would shit his pants if he saw this. By the second half though, it's just a nightmare of precise platforming, rope climbing, and the game trying its best not to catch on fire with how much slowdown's going on here. One of the easiest bosses to my shock, and I think that was meant as an apology to players who made it this far. Stage 4, the final stage, is just the most unfun shit. Enemy placement is rancid, only further emphasizing just how painful it is having a Belmont that's so slow. A few times you're placed in these rooms with extending spikes and you gotta use them as platforms to get across, but one room in particular leaves you with no wiggle room. You just gotta know to book it as soon as you enter because there's no safe spot for Chris to stand in. If you don't make the first jump on your first go the moment you enter the stage, you're getting hit. You should've just known the room would be like that, Chris said Dracula, probably, I don't fucking know. By the end of this, I'm just tanking hits to avoid battles because all they're doing is just spamming the first boss as a regular enemy now, and they respawn if you slightly off-screen them. Fucking hate that shit. Dracula ain't that big of a deal, surprisingly. The first phase is one of the easier Dracula battles I faced in classic Castlevania, and the only real problems I have with his final bat form is that his hitbox is gargantuan, he's too damn fast, and Chris is too damn slow. Not a difficult fight by any means, but you have to play it methodically because as much as you want to end it as fast as possible, that'll just get you killed. But there we go, the adventure has ended, and holy shit, this one sucked. And that's with save states to save on time, but man, this game never picks up, and it is constantly putting you down. If you're that curious about it, I recommend playing the quick fix patch of Google search to take you right to it. All it does is make you faster and let you keep your whip upgrade when you get hit, but that goes a long way in making the game playable. It doesn't solve the level design of the rope issues, but it's infinitely better than the original experience. But being real, I'd rather you just ignore adventure entirely. Believe it or not though, we're not done with the adventures of Christopher Belmont. He's also the star of the second game, Belmont's Revenge. Revenge? Holy shit, was Chris just as pissed off from all the ropes as I was? No, this revenge story is a little more traditional. So between games, Chris fucked and had a son named Soleil, which fun fact in French translates to sun, as in that large ass cancer ball in the sky, but you can also hear it as son, as in he's the son of a parent. Language is fun. At 15 years of age, Soleil is ready to take the mantle of becoming the Belmont clan's next vampire hunter, but he probably still can't legally drink until he's 21. But unbeknownst to Christopher, Dracula didn't entirely die at the end of Adventure, and decides to corrupt the young Soleil to do his bidding and thus eventually regain his powers to become whole once more. So despite being older, and I mean, take a look at his key art, my dude looks fucking prehistoric, Christopher takes up the whip once again to not only stop Dracula, but to save his son. And right off the bat, we have a stage selection screen straight out of Mega Man. You can pick these 4 stages in any order you want, with with Dracula's castle acting as the Dr. Wily encounter to keep the Mega Man comparisons going. Personally, I think you should start with the plant castle since I found this the easier stage amongst the rest, but really the whole game ended up becoming quite a surprise for me. First off, despite being older, Christopher doesn't feel as slow as before. I mean, he's still pretty slow, but he does feel a little better to control. Or I just could be gaslighting myself thinking that because, it's a sequel, so you figure, oh, it should be better than before, but I can't quite tell. You don't immediately lose whip upgrades after getting hit either. I think you gotta get smacked a couple of times now before you go down a grade. That's great since I'm now able to hold on to my stronger whip for longer durations. It means I don't have to worry about certain enemies taking for fucking ever to kill because all I have is my leathery limp dick. Oh shit, doorway transitions. As soon as I enter the first one here, I just realized the previous game didn't have any at all, which I guess means they ain't that important in retrospect. But still, especially for a classic game, you gotta have your foreboding door transitions. Sub-weapons, we have sub-weapons here. They're not all accounted for, there's only 2 in this game. But we have the axe and we got the holy water, and I think that's good enough for a slower paced game like this. The axe gives great aerial coverage against enemies in the sky, while the holy water lets me pick off goons below me without having to risk getting too close. And because we have sub-weapons back, that means hearts are back as a means of ammo, which means we now restore health with a wall meat. I missed you, wall meat, sweet. Delicious wall meat. The secret ingredient is asbestos. This game is feeling more and more like an appropriate handheld Castlevania experience by the second. Ugh, unfortunately, ropes are back in full force. I guess this is just a running gag with the Game Boy games. Of all things, why ropes? Were stairs too difficult to implement? Was Dracula's budget a little tight and he couldn't afford them? What a cheap ass! But hey, at least you can slide down ropes now for some fast movement. Makes avoiding certain enemies easier to boot. And the cherry on top of this, you can even attack while hanging on ropes now. The memes aside, the ropes aren't the worst thing in this game. There's still too damn many of them. But I appreciate Belmont's Revenge giving us more ways of defending ourselves. Belmont's Revenge is just a marked improvement across the board. I really like this one. Every stage is paced just right, and does not overstay its welcome unlike most of the other stages in Adventure. They're also pretty interesting too. The Crystal Castle overplays the spiked wall gimmick from last time, but the platforming is solid regardless. No real problems here. The blackout segments in the Rock Castle weren't the best to deal with. If I got too gung-ho, the room would get dark and I couldn't see shit. But I also love how you could just destroy these spiked crusher thingies giving you trouble. Nobody gets between Christopher Belmont and his next social security check. He's so fucking old! The Plant Castle, like I said, I think this is the easiest of the stages, but I also find it lacking compared to the rest. You like ropes? Have some more fucking ropes. Some even come from spiders. Web ropes. That's fun. Aren't you having fun? Fucking web ropes, man. Cloud Castle was also unfortunate. Jesus Christ, this never ends, does it? Ropes are us. Ropes with spiked balls, ropes with spiked floors. Jesus. Oh, fuck, that was a close call. I'll give it this, the boss at the end is neat. It's easy to get caught up in trying to whip it the hell and back, so I recommend taking your time and bringing the axe weapon. Wait, hold on, is that the fucking freight train? That usually happens at 2 in the morning, it's only 10. When you finish all 4 castles, Dracula's castle emerges, acting as your final challenge. And if you ask me, this is where the quality kinda takes a dip. These final stages are appropriately tough, but they're also quite the difficulty spike. Not so much with the stages themselves, it's more on the boss encounters. The end of the first stage is an auto-scroller against this bone dragon, and if you so much as hesitate once to get some proper footing to try and outrun the screen, you're gonna get dragged like a chump. This dude cost me my fair share of resets. It wasn't the best. But then you got the penultimate encounter in the second stage, a battle against your brainwashed son. Basically, he's like the doppelganger fight in Castlevania 3, and shit, it's the doppelganger fight from Castlevania 3. I think this is the toughest fight in the game because it's Belmont against Belmont, and you have little real estate to maneuver past your son's souped-up abilities. Hey, I'm glad to know at the end of the day my son will make a great successor, but right now I'm thinking I should have worn a condom that night. But after that bonding moment, your kid's back to normal, and all that's left is Dracula himself. He only has one form this time, but they made sure to make this fight a hell of a lot more difficult than his last encounter. The thing is, if you just remember the safe zones of every spawn point, he's actually not that bad, but it's easy to get flustered with how many balls of destruction he covers himself with before tossing them at you. Still, he'll go down eventually. The war is over. War? It was one dude versus another dude. Simmer down. Dracula's scheme was foiled because of the combined power of Christopher and Somecallmejohnny. Right, his name was mistranslated originally, huh? Once again, the world is at peace. And then Soleil has overcome the dark curse and will continue to fight Dracula and his forces. Alright, I don't know why you needed the and then with the ellipses just to follow up with that. Soon after, oh fuck me, the Belmont's family has a long history of vampire hunters. The legend will always continue. Okay, that was paced awkwardly and phrased weird. I'm gonna chalk it up to translation issues. But yeah, while it gets surprisingly tough towards the end of it, Belmont's Revenge is great. This was a pretty cozy time that's only held back a bit by some stale level design. A worthy side piece to accompany some of the better classic Castlevanias. But get this shit, someone in Konami must have really fucking loved Christopher Belmont, because the first Castlevania adventure game got a remake on the Nintendo Wii all the way back in 2009 courtesy of developer M2. Castlevania The Adventure Rebirth, a part of Konami's short-lived Rebirth lineup accompanying Gradius Rebirth and Contra Rebirth. And I really wish they continued with this format. I don't know if it was because of low sales or general lack of interest, but I thought it was so cool that Konami was going back to some of their oldest IPs and giving them new life. But after Castlevania, they just stopped, and these haven't been re-released on other consoles either. To my knowledge, the Rebirth games are not only still locked to the Wii, but they're also just straight up impossible to get now if you haven't already bought them, since the Wii shop is now permanently closed. Getting them legally, by the by, because I know some of you are probably going, yar. Anyway, Rebirth is not really a remake if you ask me, it's kind of its own thing. Christopher's back and they brought back the rolling eyeballs, see, it's totally the same game, guys. But for all intents and purposes, this is a different game. There's more stages, the bosses are completely different, and there's more enemy variation. And you know what, considering the original game wasn't good to start with, this makes Rebirth better by default. It's still a rather standard classic Castlevania experience, nothing you haven't experienced already in, say, Castlevania 1 or 3 or Bloodlines, but it is good that we're back with more traditional design that I recognize. All the standard sub-weapons are back, working pretty much how they handled before, but the game still includes Chris's fireball move when his whip is fully upgraded, and this ended up helping a ton when I was just trying to keep my distance and my heart count high. But in this game, the power-up's temporary and only lasts as long as this meter allows. After that, you're back in regular-ass whipping country. But that's fine, there isn't an enemy here that Chris can't put down with one or two well-placed strikes. Strutting speed is back to normal, jump controls aren't as stiff as Simon or Trevor, and oh thank fuck, stairs are back and there isn't a single rope in sight. Well, ropes you can climb anyway. Can't jump on those stairs though, and that really rides up my ass. I don't know, classic or not, I just think that should be standard, especially after Super Castlevania 4 and Rondo of Blood let you do that no problem. And this remake is years after those games. Come on, Chris, try and keep up. The only real complaint I have with Rebirth is similar to one I had in the original Castlevania 3 on the NES. On normal difficulty and beyond, enemies, no matter how small, just do insane damage for no fucking reason by endgame. The Medusa heads towards the end being the queen of this bullshit. My frustrations got the best of me, so I eventually just decided to replay the whole thing on an easier setting, and the more forgiving damage output made things way more comfortable. And I'll admit, I always get some sort of way when I find myself having to lower the difficulty in a game that's supposed to kick you in the balls for a bit. But at the same time, I'll be the first to tell you to play the Japanese version of Castlevania 3, and not the American version, because the Japanese version doesn't do that arbitrary bullshit. At the end of the day, you just play the game however the fuck you want. Sadly, Rebirth's also one of those games that locks the final phase of Dracula behind playing on normal and beyond, so I wasn't able to truly finish him off. But still, that doesn't stop the fact that Rebirth is just a well-crafted classic Castlevania. Again, I don't think it's anything special, but it is a good return to form that might tickle your fancy if you're not terribly into the Metroidvania scene, you know? And the soundtrack is just wonderful. A lot of tracks are remixes of old songs from other Castlevanias. They didn't really bother updating the original Adventure soundtrack. And I'm kind of torn on this. On one hand, we didn't get a remix of Chris's theme from the original Battle of the Holy, which is just a great theme. And fun fact, they did make a remix of it for this game, but it goes completely unused. Why did they do that? On the other hand, most of the original soundtrack on the Game Boy consisted of tracks that I can only describe as We Have Vampire Killer or Bloody Tears at Home. Remixes that are technically their own thing, but are still too similar to the original tracks to make you wonder why they even bothered. So I can understand why for Rebirth, they just remix the actual themes. And hey, any Castlevania game that has the loading music from the Sharp X68000 game is a winner in my books. Let's head back to the Game Boy though, for our final game in this lineup. This is Castlevania Legends, and your eyes aren't fooling you, that's a lady. This is Sonia Belmont, originally created to be the very first Belmont, as this game chronologically took place before any Castlevania prior. That is until this game was officially made non-canon by Koji Igarashi, then producer of the series. And I think I may know why that was the case, but one step at a time here. In the year 1450, Dracula begins to be a shit in Transylvania, and vampire hunter Sonia Belmont decides to take matters into her own hands with her trusty whip by her side and her assortment of magical powers. But she's not the only one looking to stop Dracula, because Alucard himself makes his presence known. This game was released post-Symphony of the Night, so I think the idea was to make Alucard a more persistent character, and apparently he and Sonia have a bit of history together? Possibly romantic? It's probably a Twilight joke somewhere in there, but I don't watch Twilight, so I'm sorry. You don't get to play as Alucard though, he's just a glorified background character in this, and later on a boss fight. Now, Legends is all Sonia Belmont, and we're back to a more linear approach to level progression, unlike Belmont's Revenge, which gave you a choice. I can take or leave that personally, but once again, default movement is slow as balls, and shooting for that proverbial turkey, the ropes are back. There is no god, Dracula was right. Sonia has great jump control though, platforming's no issue for her. She can even do the duck walk like Simon could in Super Castlevania 4, and she also rocks the fireball when her whip is maxed out like Chris had. Her magical powers are essentially this game's sub-weapons, but instead of being temporary items that you can find in candles, they're instead permanently given to you after completing a stage, giving Sonya more tools to experiment with as you progress. A design choice I actually fuck with a lot, it's just too bad I found most of the powers underwhelming. You start with the stopwatch. Okay, it's not the stopwatch, it's a wind power that stops time? I don't get it. But I got use out of it, all that matters. The second power of these bubbles is a health restore. It costs a lot of hearts, but it's good to have that extra security if you really need it. The flame, I think it's a screen-wide attack. It's not exactly a screen nuke. It's more like you're hitting every enemy on the screen with like the strength of your whip. I guess that's okay. The Saint power lets you shoot a beam from your whip, in a game where your whip already shoots a fireball when it's fully upgraded. Okay, look, the main reason why I don't really care for most of these is because by default, Sonya already has the greatest power at her disposal, her burning mode. For a bit of time upon activation, Sonya can become completely invincible, her walking speed increases, and her attack strength skyrockets. You can only use it once per life, but it's basically an I win button. Use it to bypass a piece of level design that rides up your ass, or use it for boss fights that completely trivialize them, poor Alucard having the best response to it. Sometimes I find myself deliberately taking a death just so I could reset the burning mode meter, and actual lives aren't that hard to come across, so I think they wanted you to use this liberally. And just the existence of this power makes Castlevania Legends the easiest of the Game Boy titles. Not mind-numbingly easy, but it does remove some of the spiciness that normally makes a typical classic game more fulfilling to complete if you're into that. Though it's by no means necessary looking back, the game is just inherently easier by design. Humorously enough, I didn't realize burning mode was even a thing on my first playthrough until like halfway through the game, and I still managed just fine. I played the game twice for this video, once in grayscale and the other time with Super Game Boy colors enabled, mainly because I wanted to see how much liberal use of burning mode affects difficulty, but also because on my first playthrough, I didn't manage to collect those optional sub-weapon collectibles. These blue-balled me for a bit because I thought I was collecting sub-weapons to use, same as you ever done for Castlevania. But in this game, they're just relics that you need to collect all of them in order to get the best ending of the game, that being Sonya doing the horizontal tango with someone to make babies. The father of the kid is kind of implied to be Alucard, it's not outright stated, but considering the sort of back and forth relationship they clearly have on display during in-game dialogue, it's an easy conclusion to reach. And I think that's why the game was made non-canon ultimately, making the Belmonts in some way descendants of Dracula just rings weird. They wouldn't try that again. So I think Lords of Shadow, did Lords of Shadow do that? I'm drawing a blank. Poor Sonya though, because not only was she made non-canon, there was even supposed to be a Dreamcast game starring her. What was it? Castlevania Resurrection? That game ended up getting cancelled though. Fuck Dracula, Sonya's biggest struggle is just trying to exist. But I don't know, I think Sonya Belmont deserves more love and respect because, you know, she was originally meant to be the first Belmont. And it's not often we get female Belmonts, if ever. The only other example I can think of is Richter's mom in Castlevania Nocturne, the Netflix show, and that was years after this game came out. I love me some Castlevania, but sometimes it can be a real hot and sweaty, sausage fest, you know what I mean? I read that she was included in the Castlevania DLC in that Vampire Survivors game. That's pretty cool, at least she's remembered. I know a few of my friends that play this, and apparently it's like crack, so maybe I should avoid playing it for the time being. Final Fantasy XIV is already eating up my downtime. My cat Diego is meowing like a motherfucker because he hears me talking downstairs to you guys, and I think he wants to be a part of the conversation. He's so weird, like he needs to have attention at all times. All right, I'm coming, you whiny son of a... Yeah, look at you. There you are, you little meowy gremlin, you. You feeling okay now that you're with me? You good? You're comfortable in there, aren't you? You're getting hair all over my fucking futon. You're lucky I got a limp brush roller. I'm sorry, I can't stay mad at you. I love you. Still, Sonya's one and only game ain't entirely my cup of tea, especially compared to Belmont's Revenge, and the main culprit is the level design. And I'm not just talking about the ropes. Levels are just too damn long in this game, and they're not very interesting. Nothing stuck out to me as unique or crazy, no, just a lot of blocks and rope climbing. Occasionally, there's even these booby trap rooms that do nothing but waste your time. If you smack the wrong candle, and just a heads up, that's any candle that's colored white, you're sent to this place where you gotta kill every enemy on the screen to escape. What was the point of this? To punish me for whipping candles? That's Castlevania tradition. Don't make me hate candles now. What the fuck is wrong with you? But no, man, most of the time I felt like I was going through the same stage with just a different aesthetic. The enemy variety leaves a lot to be desired. There's not much there. They needed to chill the fuck out with these home and ghost noodle thingies, and they spam the hell out of these large knights, especially by the second half of the game. I mean, graphically the game is alright for Game Boy and the music isn't too bad, but almost everything feels like a step back from Belmont's Revenge. Burning mode is legit cool, and I like the idea of permanent sub-weapons. That's something you see more in Metroidvanias rather than Classicvanias, but most of them aren't generally exciting or terribly useful because of cost effectiveness. Still, Legends is much better than Adventure. I recommend this over the original Adventure any day. I tell you, that game is just... woof! But Castlevania Legends, I didn't find very remarkable, outside of the novelty of us playing as a girl this time. I think what they need to do is, like, considering they made Castlevania the Adventure Rebirth, and like years later they make a Haunted Castle remaster, like Haunted Castle, all fucking games got a remaster. I think Belmont's Revenge and especially Castlevania Legends also need some remaster treatment, because I think there's a lot you could potentially do with those games. I'm not saying like add them to the canon or anything, whatever the fuck canon means for Castlevania nowadays anyway. But I think Belmont's Revenge and Legends definitely need that treatment as well. I'd love to hear what you guys think about that. But okay, we're done with the original handheld Castlevania videos. I think in one of the videos I said I was gonna probably tackle Kid Dracula as well, because that's sort of like tangentially related to the Castlevania series, but I'm gonna hold that off for an eventual, maybe a Castlevania spin-off video, because I think there's a lot to pull from there off the top of my head, but it's been a long time, so forgive me if I'm mistaken on that one. But anyway, we're going to call it a wrap there, and I do apologize again for making you guys wait for this one. I really wanted to get this video up by Halloween, because I normally associate October with Castlevania in December. I'm worse than Treehouse of Horror going up in November, like Fox used to do with The Simpsons all the damn time. They still do that? I'm actually genuinely curious, because I don't watch public television anymore. Before we head, hey, how's it going? Hey, you're finally here, huh? Yeah. Do you know the camera's on you? Because now you're getting all sort of weird at goodbye. Fucking hell. He yells and meows because he wants to be down here, and then when I want to show him love, he gets all fucking antsy about it. Before I begin the patron shoutouts, I want to thank my friend Lewis for taking the editing reins for this one as I'm getting ready to prepare for my Final Fantasy IX video. That is going to take some time, because I got a feeling that is going to be a pretty fucking long video. It might be the longest versus video on this channel. Final Fantasy has been doing that a lot as of late. And then there goes my cat again, coming down. Christ, you need to make up your mind. Anyway, let's see if I can get some patron shouts before he starts being a menace again. So, shoutouts to some of my $10 patrons. You can find a link to my Patreon on the card up top or in the link below, patreon.com/Somecallmejohnny. Darth Kimmy 15, Gamma Gantel, Zach Turner, Shaden 99, DJ Spindash, Studio Oddity, Sinjit Randawa, I think that's it, or is it Randhawa? Chenik Stewart, That One Gaming Guy 81, The Can Man, The Almighty Fool, Quartz, The Old King, Daisy Foxtrot, Timothy Charlton, Tailored Muffin, Dom Petretta, I think it's Pet, or is it Petretta, or is it Petretta? I'm not sure. Spider Luigi, Noah Wizbios, or Wizbios, Afik Eli Yahoo, maybe, Kenny Rudder, Jacob Mason 309, Roach, Brownie Mutt, Zunker, Frozen North, Jorge the Fallen JC, Master XXS, JD Grawl, Yusuf, Harold Orr, Ziern Fairy, I think that's 14, Gredrick, Oro Raz, Stubby, Round 71, Noah Filion, yeah, Dark Mercy, LLX Dark Mercy XLL, or was it 1-1? Reaper Sakuraba, Torakage X, Hawkwing 2652, B612 Gonzalo, Heckla Games, Colin Kennett, Nicholas Scott, Yuma Crafter, Elijah Aldrich, Resin Ace Morgan, Jack is Back, Hellfire Revenant, Aiden Smith, Neolab, LOLY, Ryuka Kiryu, Jacob Vester, Graham Kyle, EIP, RH Taker 20, Schmitty, Caesar, Super Crazy, The Maniton, True Texican, Cobalt Dragon, Arcanist 729, P. Cody Matt, Snake Fighter 64, Kaz Zora Tunic, Engine and Tonic, Dr. Tex, Milk Babe, Prowler, Caitlin, Raptor Wrangler, Lars Russell, 8-Bit Bio, and finally for today, Homura did nothing wrong. I'll take your word for that, but I'll see you guys in the next video. As always, thank you all for tuning in. Have yourselves a fantastic night, and take care. Where's my cat? There you are. You little